DarkeStorme, High Fantasy Skirmish. Oh my goodness. Are we doing another basic Betty flip through where I just turn the page and talk about what's on the page? Not really. I mean, we've been doing a lot of these lately, introducing you to these little rule sets that either are about to come out and friends of the channel send us, or these things that have been kind of languishing in, off on the fringes. This is from Alternative Armies, of course. Gavin Syme. He's a real one. Total bro, total Chad. I support Alternative Armies. They're great. And I don't see a lot of people talking about this. I don't see a lot of people playing this. And I think it's worth showing people. I think it's worth at least getting a record. Hey, this is what DarkeStorme is. See, it's a high fantasy game. You got to worry about wild magic, and not just normal wild magic. It's so wild, it's spelled with a Y and an E. It's that crazy. It's that bonkers. We'll get around. I owe you guys some tabletop games of Demigod, and maybe even something that isn't Fantasy Skirmish. Can you imagine us doing that here on the channel? We played a couple of games of Rogue Warriors. I want to run through one of the campaigns. And speaking of campaigns, instead of just a simple flip through, we'll talk about the basics of DarkeStorme today. About the background, how it plays. We're going to introduce a Fistful of Coins. This is a two-player scenario for DarkeStorme, which you can download at, it might even say on here somewhere. Yeah, it is. It's alternative-armies.com. Copyright 2000. Let's see when DarkeStorme came out. Let's see how long this has been out there and people aren't talking about. 2010. This is an old game, man. This is 15 years old. I got kids this game is older than. Takes place in the world of Valonn, which fans of the channel will recognize, particularly this Leonis. This is the Crystal Empire, home of these swashbuckling elves. A very different take on elves. On Guard, of course, also from alternativearmies.com. We had a lot of fun with that. One of the best 1v1. Look, we're just going to do a duel, but it has enough crunch in the game, enough trickery, enough outsmarting your opponent, withholding resources for that last strike. A lot of fun. A lot of head games in that one. So, Olivia, this is the world of Valonn, and it's there's a dark age. Wait, is it dark age or is it high magic? Can you have high fantasy in a dark age? Yeah, of course you can. We're reclaiming things from the ashes. And honestly, I don't think there's a whole lot to say about the rules of this game at this point. It is, at its core, not too groundbreaking, not too innovative. I want to see how it works. This is the roster chart that we're looking at right here. It's a 2d6 rollover system, and pretty basic initiative. You roll to hit once you get into combat, and then you roll to defend. But there's a couple of fun little wrinkles, little different mechanics that I think are worth investigating, worth experiencing, seeing how well they work. So this is a game that uses mostly a stat line. And as you can see here, let's take a look at something like just your standard human. From the city of Dresda, they can walk 6 inches. They can run 9. So if all you do, you get 2 actions per turn. So you can fight and then move, or you can move and then fight. It's an I go, you go system. We roll for initiative. I do all my stuff. You do all yours. If we do get into melee, then I'm going to roll, and I roll 2d6, and a normal human will hit on a 9 or better. And if he gets hit, so you chomp him with your monster, then first you roll to hit. If you miss, then you're done. But if you hit, then he gets to roll to resist. He's going to defend on an 8 or better. Likewise, if you hit him with that bolt out of the blue spell, he's going to resist on a 5 up. Well, that's Toad Spawn now. What am I talking about here? He's also a 5. The humans have a saving throw of 5 or better. Some things are more susceptible to magic. Whatever the heck an Othari is, I don't know what that is. What about a High Elf? High Elf, look at that, 8. They save on an 8 or better. Oh, they're really susceptible, aren't they? Fairy? That feels opposite to me. Maybe because they're so dialed into magic, they're more susceptible to it. I don't know. The little asterisks here are the number of wounds. Everybody just has 1 wound, except for the Greater Lizard Men. They're going to have an extra 2 wounds, so 3 altogether. The Ogres will have a total of 4. They have their original 1 plus 1 for each of these. And then Mountain Orcs. Regular Orcs, just 1. Mountain Orcs. Really slow, but they have 3 wounds, so it's going to take a little longer to knock them down a peg. Now, once you've got your forces set up, the other thing to be aware of is that different weapons will have different effects. For example, your normal knife or dagger, it's, just striking distance 1 inch. If you have a spear, you can attack people that are an inch away. All the same stuff. Great swords, 2-handed weapons have a sweeping attack. They can reach 2 inches, so they can reach out and touch you. And then, I guess if you get close to them, they still know how to use them, so you can still attack them. But with these 2-handed weapons, you can attack 3 targets if they're all in range. So multiple attack power. Here's the one thing I wanted to key in on, though. For defense, remember, it's a roll to hit, roll to save. If you're wearing armor, you have an additional armor save. But it's a little interesting because your shields, if it's a small shield, I think you have a large and a small. A small shield is a buckler. A large shield uses one arm, okay? And these things are interesting because what happens is if you fail your roll to save, your defense roll, okay, I took a hit, but I have a shield. I can attempt to sacrifice the shield. I roll a d6, and on a 1 or a 2, I don't take a wound, but my shield is gone. It will no longer defend me. I have to pay to repair it. On a 6, here, let me just double check. I don't want to misquote you guys here. Let me look this rule up, just make sure I'm doing this right. Let's see if my reading has given me the book control that I need to do this without page flipping. Nope. Here we go. Shields, you roll a d6. For a buckler, you save on a 6. On a normal shield, a 5 or a 6. That means the shield is okay, and you didn't take any damage. On a 1 or a 2, you don't take any damage, but your shield is gone for the rest of the scenario. You're going to have to pay to fix it. If you're in a campaign situation, that may not be an option. Maybe you don't have enough money. It's cheaper to fix it than it is to buy a new one, so you may want to spend the dosh, who knows. Point being, on any other result, you are still going to take damage. That means that for your first attack, you have that 1 in 3 chance that it saves you, but it's gone. Kind of interesting. I want to see how that plays out. Likewise with armor, now it works a little bit different. Armor has a rating of 1 to 4, and they use words flimsy, acceptable, quality, and exquisite. You roll your d6, and if you roll that number exactly, you saved the damage, but your armor is ruined and needs to be repaired. If you roll under that armor, then it just saves it outright. So every armor, one time in 6, is going to be destroyed. And in the case of flimsy armor, it's only going to protect you one time. As you might expect, flimsy armor is a lot cheaper than exquisite armor. Right? So the nice thing is, exquisite armor, not only is it more likely to protect you, but curiously enough, I might have done this differently and just reduced the quality by 1. If you roll a 4 in exquisite armor, now for the rest of the game, you got a quality of 3. It's actually just quality, and it slowly degrades. But nope, that's not the case. And we're going to play this the way that it is written. We have a very simple morale table. Bear in mind that there are a couple of keyword power-ups, one of which is inspired. So your morale is just, hey, look. Well, let's first of all, when do you have to do this? If you're wounded and survived, or you're within 6 inches of a friend who died, make a morale check. And on a 1 to 4, you're fine. On a 5, you're shocked and you lose 1 action. Remember, you get 2 actions. So on a 5, your next activation, you only get 1 as you recover. And on a 6, you run away for a turn. And it says here, you must spend 1 activation running towards the nearest table edge. So that's 2 activations. If you leave, you're killed and lost. After that, they lose 1 action on the next. So they run away, and then they only have 1 action, so they're only going to be able to walk back. So that's basically a turn and a half that they lose. Powerful, not overwhelming. Another fun little subsystem that we have here is there's special rules for undead, of course, but we have monster handling. Amok. Whenever you damage a monster, there's a chance that the handler loses control. And if that's the case, then you have, depending on what happens, your opponent may get to decide what your monster do. It may turn on its handler. It may turn on the nearest figure. Kind of an interesting little mini mechanic. And then, of course, if you fell a giant, there's a chance that you're going to get squashed. I like that. It's a slight chance, but it adds just that little bit of frisson of danger. Maybe you want to take that giant down with bow and arrow. It does have a fairly simple spell mechanic. You have multiple levels of spells. I don't fully understand how it works. We're going to have to look at it in the context of the campaign, because some spells have material components. Let's see if we can find those spells. It costs 1 action to cast a spell, so you can either move and then cast, or cast and then move. And I like the way this is put. When cast, a spell is assumed to work perfectly, but roll 2d6, and on a 3, the spell has not worked perfectly and has no effect. On a 2, it backfires, and its effects are felt by the caster. It's assumed to work perfectly, but you have to roll the dice to find out if it works perfectly. Gavin, baby, what are you doing? Anyway, there's like 8 or 9 different levels of spells. You get levels 1, 2, and 3 for free. Everybody gets them. I probably would have lumped all those into one level, but they are of increasing power. It's really more a case of what those spells do. Spells have a cost. I'm not quite sure how this works. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we look at the first scenario in our little mini campaign that we'll be playing. Something like Lightning Fork. You blast people with lightning. It's exactly what it says. It says select an area 3 inches wide by 3 inches deep. They all must resist magic or struck by one of the ends of a lightning bolt. This causes 1 wound to all characters and monsters. If it backfires, it hits the mage and all 3 inches around him. Now that costs 4 points. Oh. Some of these cost coins. All right, that's pretty obvious. But that's going to be a real problem for us in our campaign game because we have a wizard, and I don't really understand how this works. Now, it does use a Fire and Forget, very fancy and magic system, but this makes a very good segue into a Fistful of Coins 2-player scenario for DarkeStorme. A little bit of fluff, kind of explaining the situation. Basically, the princess has been captured, and our 4 heroes, mine won't look like this, are going to go try to rescue her. And we have a 3-chapter campaign, which includes our hero and a spellcaster and an archer and 3. Oh, these might be the bandits that we have to fight first. But we get 3 puppies. 3 doggos are coming with us, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And yes, you can pet the dogs in this game. And because Gavin is trying to sell lead, he tells you, here's the recommended miniature. If you want to play this out, if you want to get this and run it at a convention, 3 bing bang boom, I think you'll probably get through it in a single 4-hour session. Here's the figure. Take FL12-03. Oh, I hope I remember to show you exactly what that miniature looks like right here. Here's our hero, Dante. He's got 2 actions. He causes and resists wounds. Remember when I said this uses a couple little keywords? Yeah, that's the skills here. So your leader, your iron skin gives him an extra wound. So see the 1+1. So he can take 2 wounds before he's down. He's got 6th sense, which gives, I can't remember what this is. I'm not sure what the talent does, to be honest with you. But he does have that exquisite armor, saves on a 4 or less, and the 2-handed weapon, so you gotta like that. He is backed up by a mage, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier. I don't know how many points he's got, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. And I don't know how many coins he's got. So now these are the spells, or Fire and Forget. He can cast Shock Blast, and this is important, right? Because we're gonna start with a Lightning Fork. We're gonna blam the heck, and I would spam this every turn, but you can only use it once. Then you have to go to something else like Mist of Blindness. Maybe you hit him with a fireball. But I don't know exactly how many points I have to spend on this. On spells for this. But here's our recommended miniature for the wizard on alternativearmies.com. And I'm not getting paid for this, by the way. And then we have Arilla, the elf, and she's got a stat line that looks like this. So pretty basic stat line, right? Cause wound, resist magic. She's got a 6-up resist magic. That's pretty good. I like the 8-up. It tells you that an 8 or better will help her cause wounds. She has throwing knives, shorter range, you might expect. Natural warrior, she's nimble, iron skin for that extra. That's going to be important. Now, inspired gives you a +2 on that morale table, which means anybody with inspired never checks morale. Because if you recall, you only fail morale on a 5 or a 6. But if I'm at +2, I guess no, maybe you do need to, because if you roll a 4, then or it's -2 rather. If I roll a 6, it actually results in a 4. Yeah, so I had it right the first time. You're at -2 on that table, you're never going to roll a 5 or a 6. So we don't have to worry about that. But then here's Fritz, Franz, and Fonzo. And they're going to go try to rescue. Now, to rescue the princess, they're going to start here in the ruined barn. There's a little low wall, and there's 3 groups of bandits that are going to try to stop our boys. And we have to try to... We're going to play double-handed, okay? 2-fisted gaming here. When it is the turn for the bandits to activate, and they have names and figures here. I probably won't put the example of the figure up here, though, for that, because I don't know. Maybe I'm just lazy. Most figures have 2 actions. You can buy the power-up to get 3 or even 4 actions. That's pretty deep, and I'm not going to start with that, because I'm just learning how to play the game. So here's our leader, Herman Zermitz is a human from Dresda. I think that's the nation or maybe the city. He's got some abilities here. Now, point being, we've got a total of 9 bandits. Is that right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. So 3 groups of 3. We got a couple of leader types here with more than 1 wound, and then the rest of these guys, we got a couple of archers and a couple of guys with melee weapons. I don't know if these are the bandits right here, but this is an example of the kind of figures that you might have that you can find. And it's built for 28 millimeter. Of course, I'm going to be using 15 millimeter. Not a big deal. So that's the scenario. Just a simple ambush on the road. Our heroes are here. Our dogs are here. And these 9 bandits are going to run in and beat up our heroes. But when we kill 5 of the bandits, the other 4 are going to try to escape to the north. And if they get off the table, they'll be able to alert the bandit camp off to the north, which will change what happens in scenario number 2. I'm not going to talk about that today. Instead, we're just going to call it quits right here. I've given you the brief introduction. There's more stuff in here. There's like war engines, and there's giant monsters in here. Electo, the wyvern, owlbears. We've broken the curse. And it gives you point cost so you can build just your standard scenarios. In fact, with this, about 520 points worth of dudes to build your heroes. And then if you wanted to do this as a 2-player game, the bandits could build their own force to go up against your heroes. The unpaid player of Hamlin. Hey, it's me. Very relatable. He's a Pied Piper for the rats. Winged serpent, chimeras, griffins, all the usual suspects. So it's a pretty thorough game. It looks pretty basic at its heart, but I do want to give a huge shout out to the fact that it does have a number of free resources on the website, including scenarios. I think this is the kind of game that is a role-playing light, does absolutely benefit from the scenario design, and we'll see if this one is any good next time. It does also include, and I just breezed over this, it does include table setup. If you don't know what to do, it's got some charts here at the forefront that will help you set up a nice fun table. A little different, like how many pieces of terrain. Here's where are we at exactly. This is very reminiscent of some of the best games produced by, what's his name? The Frostgrave guy. You know his name. I can't think of it at the moment. Anyway, weather effects, that could be fun. Maybe we'll introduce those into scenario 2 or 3, depending on what happens, which will be a bit of a mystery. Ending on a little bit of a cliffhanger here. I know it's a short one, but like I said, nothing too groundbreaking or innovative here, but some fun little mini mechanics that are worth investigating, and a really solid mini campaign that you can play straight out of the box. There's no box. You know what I'm talking about. Don't be pedantic. Nobody likes a pedant. But a lot of people seem to like the rules and miniatures for Alternative Armies. Once again, this is not a paid endorsement. I'm just a fan. I just make this content because I think this stuff is interesting, and I don't see enough people really talking about it here online. So we're going to do a little bit more of that. Till next time, I'm praying for you. Until next time, I'm praying for you.